Welcome to Module 4 of the Inclusion of Special Populations Training 703 KAR 5:070. My name is Krista Mullins, and I'm a Program Consultant in the Office of Assessment and Accountability. Module 4 will discuss conditions for specific accommodations. There will be some allegation prevention and best practices tips and a check for understanding at the end of the module. On the screen are the most used, but not only, accommodations allowed on state testing. We will discuss each one from the regulation individually. Calculators are available on state tests in the online format, handheld calculator, or both forms depending on the test being given. The type of calculator that can be used is governed by the Test Administration Manual for each assessment. To use a calculator, a student must have the type of calculator selected and have an active plan with documentation of a disability's impact on mathematics calculation or reasoning. Have used the calculator in routine instruction throughout the year. If a student has a valid calculator accommodation, then that calculator is allowed on all sections, including non-calculator sections of tests. It should be noted that the calculator accommodation is a disability accommodation, not an EL accommodation. In order for the use of extended time to be allowed during the state-required content assessment, the student plan should include under what conditions a student will need extended time during instruction and assessments. Evaluation information and ongoing progress data will support the need for extended time. The use of extended time on the state-required content assessment shall be utilized as long as the student is demonstrating on-task efforts which allow the student to make constructive progress on completing their assessment responses. Please refer to the test manual for the specific assessment being administered for specifics regarding extended time. Behavior supports are allowed during the state-required content assessment when the student plan includes under what conditions a student will need the supports during instruction. They cannot be solely given during a state-required content assessment. This should be documented with evaluation and progress data. Some strategies used may include positive behavioral interventions and supports as indicated in a student's behavior intervention plan, IEP, or 504. The student may receive verbal, tangible, or tactile reinforcements for being on task, such as a piece of candy or a fidget. The student may also use technology to focus attention or reduce stress. Use of technology for these students does not mean they can automatically use a text-to-speech online reader or the online calculator. It means if a student is given computer time as a reward for on-task behavior, then the student would still be able to receive that reward after their test session is complete. Some students require classical music or a sound machine to help focus or reduce stress. A strategy used for reinforcement or behavior modification may not distract or influence another student who is testing. If it does, then the student utilizing this accommodation will need to be tested outside the general test environment. Please note that students who exhibit disruptive behavior prior to or during testing may be tested in a different location from their peers. This includes students who do not have a behavior plan, IEP, or 504. The Administration Code regulation provides districts the ability to have a plan to avoid disruptive situations in place prior to a test session. This is a local decision. Students who are deaf or hard of hearing who require an ASL interpreter must have a verified disability in the area of hearing and use sign language as their primary mode of communication due to that disability. The student must also use an interpreter during routine instruction. While providing services during an assessment administration, an interpreter may not define vocabulary, provide content, or teach concepts. They should not lead students to a current answer. Anyone not employed in a certified position who is providing ASL interpretation must read and sign a non-disclosure form. An interpreter must not be used in place of technology. Oral Native Language Support, or ONLS, is an administration strategy accommodation for EL students. The level of translation support for each student should be based on the student's individual language needs as documented in the PSP. This may range from translating specific vocabulary to translating all written parts of the content assessment. Directions may be simplified, but test content should never be paraphrased or simplified. To meet the needs for translators, students may utilize a different testing schedule for EL students as long as the schedule falls within the test window. Please refer to the test literature for your specific assessment for details. ONLS may be provided in a small group of up to 4 students. Electronic translation devices such as Google Translate, Pocket Talk, or translation headphones are not permitted. Telephone translation services are not permitted. Anyone not employed in a certified position who will be providing language support services must complete both administration code and inclusion regulations trainings and sign a non-disclosure. Bilingual or English dictionaries are a processing and response accommodation for EL students. The bilingual or English dictionaries can be in print or electronic versions. Consistent with best practices for ELs, the dictionary used should be a word-to-word translation without definitions. When using an electronic bilingual or English dictionary, make sure that other capabilities such as going to the internet, translating whole phrases and sentences, etc., are turned off before using this accommodation on the state-required content assessments. Again, Google Translate or Pocket Talk may not be used. Electronic dictionaries should be used in a one-to-one setting. Paper dictionaries may be used in a small group setting or in a large group if best practices are taken to ensure this does not cause a distraction to other students who are testing. Here are some allegation prevention tips for the previous accommodations. Check your student calculators with the guidelines outlined in the test administration manual for that specific assessment you are administering. Be sure your staff providing accommodations are fully trained and have signed a non-disclosure if necessary. When grouping students for oral native language support, be aware of their proficiency test scores. A student who requires very little support should likely not be grouped with a student who requires extensive translation. It is time for our fourth check for understanding, which will cover information about the accommodations of technology, manipulatives, reader, and scribe. Please pause the video and take a few moments to read and answer these yes/no questions, and then resume the video for us to discuss. Number 1, may a district group up to 4 students together for oral native language support? Yes. Up to 4 students with the same language may be grouped together. The best practice is to be aware of the translation needs of the students. Number 2, can the same types of calculators be used for all state-required assessments? The answer is no. The test administration manual for each assessment specifies the calculator guidelines for each individual test. Number 3, can a student use a text reader as a behavior modification? The answer is no. A text reader is an accommodation for a student who has a disability related to reading or as an EL support. It is not a behavior modification support. Number 4, if a student sleeps for 55 minutes of a 60-minute test, are they entitled to their extended time? The answer is no. The regulation states that the use of extended time on assessments shall be utilized if the student is demonstrating on-task efforts toward constructive progress, found on pages 11 and 22 of the regulation. This concludes Module 4. Please remember that all 4 modules must be completed for the full inclusion of special populations regulation training. If you have any questions about anything we discussed or require further clarification, please contact our office by emailing dacinfo@education.ky.gov or by calling 502-564-4394.